be a very interesting quote to me, and I think it had a lot of meaning and was very important to people of all ages. It said, "Readers are plentiful, thinkers are rare," by Anthony Burgess. I think that the first thing that came into my mind when I got this quote was readers versus authors. In my opinion, there's a book out there for everyone. Now, not everyone is an avid reader, but there is a book out there for everyone that you will like. Whereas when you sit down to write a book, when I've ever sat down to write a book or an essay or a research paper, it's extremely difficult. Half of the time I sit down, I say, oh, I'm ready to go, and my mind goes completely blank. So it takes a lot of thought and a lot of effort and a lot of creativity to write a book. Whereas reading a book, surprisingly, especially in the United States, most people can read a book. It can be, they're not going to be reading Tolstoy or Jane Austen, but they can read a book. So I think what Anthony Burgess was getting at with this was that a lot of people can read, but someone who can read something and think about it and really question it and say, what is the author trying to say here, and is it completely true? Those people are rare, and sometimes that rarely happens. Often we sit down to read a fantasy book or a murder mystery or a romance novel, and it's entertainment, solely entertainment. But to read a book and really think about it, or to sit down and write a book, takes a lot of thought. So on that note, today I'd like to talk about Albert Einstein, freedom of speech, and how to question the things that you read, and whether our society is losing that ability. First of all, Albert Einstein gave a quote at one time, paraphrased it, said, "Intelligence is great, but creativity has true value." And what I took from that quote was that knowledge has a lot of different meanings. But knowledge, I think, the intelligence that Albert Einstein was referring to, is the intelligence you get from reading a book, or from going to a classroom and learning about the theories that he created in physics, and learning about the Civil War. It's knowledge that, obviously, we already know. Someone already thought of it. Someone came up with that idea before you did. And while that knowledge is extremely valuable, there is something even more valuable and interesting about creativity. Something that you have come up with on your own. And what Anthony Burgess was getting at here is that what is even more valuable than being able to read and attain that knowledge, but being able to use it, to being able to come up with things creatively, new ways to do things, new ways to interpret that knowledge and use it to the best of your ability. Secondly, freedom of speech. A lot of people will claim, and as it is completely true, that the reason we need freedom of speech, or the reason to have freedom of speech, is to tolerate what other people have to say. To listen to what someone has to say and say, okay, I can accept that. I know from discussions in my government class that that is a very extremely difficult attribute to have. To be able to listen to someone have to say and not say anything in response. What I think the true meaning of freedom of speech is, or the true reason that we need freedom of speech in countries especially that don't have it, is that freedom of speech allows creativity to flow. It allows people to say, oh, I never thought of that. Without freedom of speech and without expressing our ideas and being able to be creative, we won't progress as a society. If we are all told to think and speak the same things, we will be stagnant. Therefore, I think that is again what Anthony Burgess was getting to. To read knowledge that has already been thought of is unbelievably valuable. But to be able to interpret that knowledge and tell people about what your interpretation of it is extremely valuable not only to yourself, not only to the other people you tell it to, but also to society as a whole, so that we can grow and change as a society, instead of staying stagnant with the same thoughts and the same speech and the same feelings. So finally, I challenge you. Question. Be creative. It is okay to be wrong and make mistakes, to learn and to experience, and then from those experiences, take something from them that no one else has taken. Make a mistake that no one else has taken, or make a mistake that someone else has made and take something different from it, and then share it, express it, tell everyone you know, so that as a society, we will be able to move forward and change what needs to be changed. And sometimes we will change things that don't need to be changed and we'll go, crud, now we need to change it back. But to move forward and learn and express ourselves. To not only read things, but interpret them and change them and think about them so that we can not only be readers, but also be authors. Thank you.